You're in the middle of a conversation, and on the surface, everything looks perfectly normal. People are smiling, the dialogue is steady, and someone is still asking how your week was. But suddenly, the energy in the room changes. No one said anything rude, but their eyes shift for a split second, or their voice loses that bit of warmth it had just a moment ago. From that moment on, you're no longer fully in the room. Part of you is still nodding and smiling, but the other part is replaying every detail, wondering if you said something wrong, or inventing a story out of a tiny moment. People who notice these shifts often struggle to trust themselves because they've been told for years that they are too sensitive. But sensing a change doesn't mean you're overthinking. It might mean you're picking up on something real. While they often arrive at the same time, anxiety and intuition operate through different psychological processes. They both create that same heavy feeling in your chest, but the mechanics behind that sensation tell two different stories. On one hand, you have anxiety, which often feels like a tangled mess of what-ifs. On the other, you have intuition, which acts more like a clear direction. Learning to tell them apart begins by looking at the evidence each one leaves behind. Consider how the feeling reacts to new information. If a text message goes unanswered for hours, anxiety rapidly rushes in to fill the silence with a dramatic story about how they must be upset or losing interest. But when they finally reply, saying they were just incredibly busy at work, that anxious feeling usually evaporates almost instantly. Anxiety struggles to survive in the face of a concrete fact. In this case, the fear acts like a balloon that shrinks the moment it hits reality. Intuition does the opposite. When more information arrives, the feeling usually gets sharper and more consistent. There is also the question of who the feeling is actually about. If you walk into a room and two people suddenly stop talking, anxiety automatically assumes you are the cause of the silence. You start replaying your own actions, convinced that every strange expression must be a reaction to something you did. While anxiety points inward for blame, intuition simply notices. It observes that the energy is off without automatically making you the center of the problem. It's the stark difference between being a victim in a crisis and being a detective gathering data about the environment. Then there is the volume of the feeling. Both anxiety and intuition create genuine physical sensations, like a tightening in your stomach. But anxiety usually feels chaotic. It races and makes your body feel loud. You can see it in the rhythm. Anxiety is this jagged audio spotio. Intuition is much quieter. It's a steady, direct feeling that stays calm even if it refuses to leave. This leads to how much pressure the feeling puts on you. Anxiety demands you fix the situation right now because it can't stand the wait. It's the difference between a stopwatch on fire and a slow-moving hourglass. Intuition doesn't push you into a panic. It allows you to wait and see if a pattern continues. Learning to truly trust yourself often means developing the patience to let the facts catch up with your initial feelings. We also have to look at when the feeling actually belongs. Sometimes what feels like a gut instinct is actually an old wound that never fully healed. Anxiety acts like a time machine, dragging a past rejection into a completely different moment. You can tell the difference by whether the feeling is haunted by the past or anchored in the now. Real intuition only reacts to the present facts. While your mind might be trying to protect you from a past pain, that protection can sometimes blur what is actually happening right in front of you. To find that clarity, you can use a 30-second exercise the next time you feel a sudden shift in energy. First, look at the facts. These are the concrete things you can actually see and hear, like the fact that someone replied more slowly than usual, or they seemed distracted during dinner. Then, isolate the story. This is the dramatic narrative your brain is building around those facts, the idea that they secretly dislike you, or that the friendship is over. When you mentally erase the story, you can see what data is actually left. By stripping away the drama, the quiet truth of your intuition finally has enough room to be heard. Noticing small changes in human behavior isn't a flaw. That sensitivity is actually a superpower of observation. It just needs a more reliable filter. The goal isn't to stop feeling or noticing things. It's to learn how to sort the noise from the truth. When you can separate the story from the facts, you can finally tell which feelings deserve your caution and which ones deserve your trust.